Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Le Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. The Kremlin says Russia is planning response measures to contain very serious threat from NATO, as leaders of the Western military alliance hold a summit in Washington. Democrat heavyweight Nancy Pelosi, actor and donor George Clooney mount pressure on Joe Biden as a Democratic senator calls on him to ditch his re-election bid. Taiwan says it has detected 66 Chinese military aircraft around the island in 24 hours, a record high number of sorties this year. Dark plume of smoke rises from the spire as Gothic Cathedral in French city of Rouen in Normandy catches fire. The cathedral was painted several times by Claude Monet. Burkina Faso military junta adopts the draft of an amended family code that criminalizes homosexuality, which in some African countries is punishable by prison term or death. Hello and welcome. We start with West Africa, where the junta-led states are forging closer ties with Russia. In the latest, Mali's ruling military junta and Russia's state nuclear company Rosatom have signed 3 nuclear cooperation deals. The two sides have discussed projects including a Russian-designed low-power nuclear power plant. Rosatom delegation met the leader of Mali's junta, Assimi Goïta, on the 2nd and 3rd of July, as per the firm's statement. It held negotiations with junta officials responsible for the economy, energy and education. The two sides discussed a strategic project to build a Russian-designed low-power nuclear power plant in Mali, while they also discussed solar power generation and geological exploration projects. However, Rosatom did not give details about the proposed low-power nuclear power plant. Now, this is Russia's latest attempt to grow its nuclear footprint in Africa. For years, Russia has been seeking to attract business by signing cooperation agreements with countries across the continent. Currently, the only operational nuclear power station on the African continent is South Africa's Koeberg nuclear plant. However, many African countries are eyeing nuclear power to solve their electrification challenge. Russia has meanwhile sensed an opportunity to forge new economic ties in the region to mitigate the impact of Western sanctions imposed due to its war in Ukraine. It has been quick to pledge its support to African countries with nuclear energy ambitions. Russia is already constructing the $30 billion Al-Dabar nuclear power plant in Egypt, which has been dubbed as one of the 2 largest nuclear construction projects in the world. Now, it has also signed nuclear energy cooperation agreements with Burkina Faso and Algeria. Now, a part of this push also includes strengthening ties with juntas in West Africa's Sahel region. Now, the 3 junta-led states in the region, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, have recently formed their own alliance, and they have ditched the West African bloc ECOWAS. Now, these nations have turned to Russia to solve their internal security challenges such as terrorism And they have Russian military instructors who have been training their army to fight the terrorists and insurgents, while the three nations have kicked out Western troops from their territories. Now, Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso have turned away from traditional Western allies and have been deepening cooperation with Russia. So shifting alliances and these allegiances, West Africa, too, like several other parts of the world, is witnessing a geopolitical face-off between Russia and the West. Now, for more, we are being joined by Paul Melly. Paul is a consulting fellow at Africa Programme at the International Affairs think tank Chatham House. He joins us live from London. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon.
Now, what are the specific goals and motivations behind Mali's junta signing cooperation deals with Russia's state nuclear company Rosatom? How does this partnership align with Mali's energy needs and long-term development plans?
Well, I think the motivation is actually less about energy in a way and more about just deepening the partnership with Russia. As you've been explaining, Mali, like its neighbors Burkina Faso and Niger, is now ruled by a military junta that overturned a democratically elected civilian government in a coup, as happened in those other countries as well. And under these new military leaders, there's been this conscious decision to step away from the traditional alliances and partnerships with Western countries, with the European Union, with France, with the US, and also the ECOWAS West African bloc, whose governance rules, although sometimes member states breach them, whose governance rules commit governments to civilian rule in elected multi-party political systems. So in making a break with all of that, countries such as Mali are trying to build an alliance.
What is the impact on the regional dynamics, given that Rosatom has been actively seeking business opportunities in Africa? How might this nuclear partnership impact regional dynamics in West Africa and the Sahel region? Like, what implications could it have for neighboring countries and their energy policies?
I don't really think it's very much to do with energy. As I said, the Mali and the other Sahel states have deliberately broken with the traditional partnerships, both with the West and with their neighbors in coastal West Africa. And so they're in a way, signing a nuclear deal is a very public, high-profile way for Russia to signal to Mali that it is prepared to engage in a level of support and cooperation that Western countries wouldn't do. But whether Russia will actually live up to that and contemplate seriously building a nuclear power plant in a country where the energy demand is high but fragile, people are on very low incomes, so the economics of the nuclear power sector are difficult, and where there's a huge security threat. There are very large tracts of Mali that are either controlled by armed jihadist groups or under direct threat from armed jihadist groups. And so that's what leads one to question how serious Russia's intention is. Of course, it would reduce Mali's electricity imports in theory from coastal West Africa. It would help to make it more independent of countries such as Côte d'Ivoire, who supply electricity at the moment. But I think this is more of a political gesture, a diplomatic gesture, than anything short term. And if you look at the comments made by the Russians and the Malians after this agreement, they're pretty vague. They're talking about maintaining contact and exchanging ideas in a rather broad brush term. Where it would be more significant possibly is that Niger, one of the three Sahelian countries, does have uranium. and is a major uranium producer. So it's possible in the very long term that you could develop a nuclear sector. People in the Sahelian countries sometimes say, well, why can't we have a nuclear power sector such as they have in Europe, in France, for example? But the economics are very difficult, and the security context is extremely challenging.
Absolutely. And of course, it does signal a shift away from the traditional Western allies for Mali. What implications might this have?
Well, I think we're still in a very early phase. These countries, it's basically since 2020 that these military regimes have taken power and begun to divorce themselves from the traditional partnerships. And it's going to be quite a few years, I think, before we really see how the shape of West Africa pans out, because there are actually very deep social and economic reasons that tie the Sahel countries to their coastal neighbors, the states that remain, if you like, in a close partnership with Europe and more broadly with the West. There are huge numbers of migrant workers, for example, in the Sahelian countries who live in coastal West Africa, millions of workers. So these ties are very deep. Mali is a landlocked country. Its main routes to the sea are through Senegal and through Cote d'Ivoire. So I think it's going to, in that regional context, it's going to be quite some time before we see exactly how far this pans out, and whether the Sahel countries, in fact, do persist in pursuing this very different course or not. And that internal politics is also going to be a factor, because we're beginning to see movements of protest in these countries, and the regimes are responding by cracking down. They're locking people up and trying to impose their power by authoritarian methods, if you like.
Right. Paul, thank you very much for being with us and your valued insights on all the latest coming out of Mali.
You're very welcome.
The South African Weather Service, the SAWS, has issued a level 8 warning for disruptive rain over Cape Town, Drakensberg and Stellenbosch. The situation is critical and residents are urged to take precautions. The city of Cape Town has been struggling with the impacts of severe weather since Sunday, and the SAWS predicts 24-hour rainfall accumulations of 40 to 60 millimeters, with up to 80 to 100 millimeters in mountainous areas. There has been widespread damage to houses and infrastructure. Nearly 1,000 homes in informal settlements in Cape Town, South Africa, have been destroyed by gale force winds, displacing around 4,000 people. Approximately 11,000 households are without power across the Western Cape due to the damaging rains and winds. The mayoral committee member for safety and security, JP Smith, has said all indications are that worse is still to come before there is any respite. South African weather authorities said on Monday that Cape Town and the surrounding areas are expected to be hit by multiple cold fronts until at least Friday, bringing torrential rain, strong winds, flooding, and possible mudslides. Disaster management teams are on high alert, responding to weather-related incidents. Some communities are cut off due to the severe weather conditions. Residents have been advised to heed the evacuation calls and to avoid closed roads, avoid all unnecessary travel, and to remain indoors wherever possible. From Durban, South Africa, I'm Alyson Le Grange for First Post.
There was like this lull in the air, almost like the calm before the storm. It went really quiet, and then all of a sudden it just felt like this. And then I looked up and there was no roof. So it was hectic.
So I just feel this strong wind. That wind was very strong. That wind was very strong, but I'm telling you, I never saw something like that in my life. It's very, very strong. And they just take the roof and everything.
Next in from South Africa's capital, Pretoria, the mastermind behind the brazen looting of over $130 million has triggered national outrage and has been handed a whopping 495-year prison sentence. Chifiwa Matodzi, the former chairperson of the defunct VBS Bank Board, has pleaded guilty to a staggering 33 charges. While he has been given 15 years for each charge, the court ruled that all the sentences will run concurrently, which means he will serve a total of 15 years in jail. Now, the chase to arrest Matodzi was not an easy one, because for many years VBS Bank was a distinctly modest entity that was largely owned by its depositors. While the depositors claimed to help rural communities to secure mortgages or to save for family funerals, their actions proved otherwise. And with staggering speed, the bank transformed into a slush fund for corrupt politicians and for their business cronies. Now, during the sentencing, the court accused the bank owners of orchestrating schemes to manipulate impoverished regions. Their deceit and exploitation came into the limelight when an investigation by South Africa's central bank discovered the extent of the alleged corruption and political entanglement. Reports mention that these local officials allegedly persuaded to siphon off funds from their budgets into the bank's coffers in exchange for lucrative rewards. The climax to their wrongdoings came when the bank was forced into liquidation in November of 2018, sending shockwaves through the financial world. And a plea and sentence agreement uncovered that Matodzi was in fact one of the key players. The saga of greed, deceit and daring theft had captivated the nation, revealing a tale of high-stakes corruption and clandestine maneuvers that would put any blockbuster thriller to shame. For our next story, let's shift focus to Nigeria. The trend is going viral in the country, but it has nothing to do with some catchy numbers or funny banter on social media. The trend is about fleeing the country. Thousands of young Nigerians are seeking to leave the country in search of a better life. This trend has a name. It's called Japa, which in Yoruba language means to escape. Now, the Japa trend is becoming increasingly popular among the Nigerian Gen Zs, as well as millennials. As per a survey conducted in the year 2022, around 70% of Nigerians aged between 18 and 35 would relocate given the opportunity. In 2019, the figure was at just 39%. Many middle-class Nigerians have expressed frustration with high unemployment, lack of opportunities, corruption and infrastructural gaps in Nigeria. They have been sharing their Japa experiences on social media, and many of them are encouraging their peers to do the same. There are some popular Japa destinations, the UK being at the top. There are more than 270,000 Nigerians living in the UK, according to government statistics. The US and Canada are also highly desirable. In Canada, the number of Nigerians seeking residency has tripled since 2015. It's a phenomenon known as the Canada Rush. Now, living abroad is easier for the educated and skilled youth. However, many Nigerians also resort to flee through illegal routes. Thousands of people die each year in the process. As per reports, about 1,200 Nigerians have died while trying to cross the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea in 2023. These are two dangerous migration routes in the world, and even those who could make it are unable to find work or to achieve a decent way of living. The Japa trend is also affecting Nigerian economy negatively. It is causing a severe brain drain as young, educated and skilled Nigerians are choosing to leave the country. Japa has specifically hit Nigeria's medical industry. As per the Nigerian Medical Association, in 2022, At least 50 doctors left the country every single week. Now, this has left an already overloaded healthcare system struggling. There are social impacts as well, as immigration hits many youngsters with family separation and a loss of cultural cohesion. Earlier this year, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu acknowledged the Japa trend. He assured Nigerians not to be bothered about the mass exodus, adding that the federal government, in collaboration with the subnationals, is working to train more persons to fill the professional gap across sectors. However, the trend is still picking up pace in the country and is certainly a cause for worry for a major economy and the most populous country in Africa. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid reports of coups and crises that dominate the headlines from the continent, we get you positive stories that often get overlooked. Our story today is from the North African country of Morocco, where efforts to preserve ethnic music have gathered steam. Every year, the country hosts the Nawa and World Music Festival that aims to promote the music of the ethnic community, bringing together rhythm, rituals, heritage and culture. Hundreds and thousands of people attend this festival each year. Our next report gets you more.
This is Morocco's city of Essaouira. Every year for 3 days, this city holds a cultural event honoring and paying tribute to the ethnic Gnawa people. It's called the Essaouira Gnawa and World Music Festival. This year, from June 27th to 29th, the festival marked its 25th anniversary edition. Over the years, the event has put Morocco on the global music map and has given the world a sneak peek into the history of slavery and the liberation of the Gnawa people, with songs and rhythms that recount their experiences and celebrate their resilience.
We came from Durban, nearly 300 kilometers southeast of Essaouira, to soak up the atmosphere of this festival, which is now 24 years old and it is not weakening. The attendees have also evolved in their costumes and performances. It's all an honor for Gnawa Festival.
This year, the festival brought together over 400 artists who performed from Essaouira's old Medina to the beach. The opening parade was a colorful spectacle with Gnawa Malams in the streets, leading groups of musicians playing various instruments like castanets, drums and a 3-string lute. The musical celebration brought together Gnawa masters, the Moroccan youth and tourists who share the love for the genre.
Many young people are increasingly interested in and performing at the Gnawa festival. I tell them that this heritage must be preserved. They must know that being a malam, a master, is not just about wearing a gembri, traditional costume. It's many things, including good conduct, good behavior with people and good behavior on stage. I wish them great success.
Despite musical acts from several countries, the festival remains dedicated to its mission of preserving the rich Gnawa heritage.
We are very happy to be here because it has become an annual event tradition for us. It's an opportunity for us to meet our audience, to maintain the link with our culture and our originality, so that it always remains motivating. I thank the organizers for bringing together all the Gnawa lovers for this occasion and for promoting this music through this festival and its organization. This has contributed a lot to Gnawa Festival.
Gnawa is a centuries-old spiritual music repertoire that originated from the Gnawa ethnic group in Morocco. It was practiced by enslaved people and has traditionally been reserved for men. Its traditional tunes, also known as Tagnawete, is deeply rooted in Sufism and blends rhythms with spiritual chants and poetry. Since its inception in 1997, the annual festival has become one of the most anticipated events in Morocco. In 2019, it was listed as Intangible Cultural Heritage by UNESCO. Today, it brings together artists from across Africa, Europe and North America. By engaging with different musical traditions and styles, even Gnawa artists are expanding their creative horizons, pushing the boundaries of their own musical expression, and most importantly, are reinventing ancestral art.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.